Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War Big Boned event in which the Grave Giant is added to the game. So this week we have a few things going on. We end up having ourselves some Bounty Hunter this weekend. We got the whole Guild War thing going on, and we got the first ever change to the trial system ever since it was first released. Some people seem to have it bugged, including myself, where it is still showing the previous team, but apparently some people are seeing the correct team, and the team that they actually end up changing it to, and you'll probably see if it's not already there, is this one right over here. We have the Sapphire Giant, Valkyrie, the Scrimmer, and the Hindla, and this will make it substantially easier. We have Valkyrie just to feed a bunch of blue. We have a proper tank that can actually, you know, tank and exist there for some amount of time. We have a backup heal, which you can either throw in your tank or keep your Hindla alive, as you're primarily going to be winning off of your Hindla itself. It does a bunch of splash damage and ends up applying some freeze, but more importantly ends up getting to summon a giant, so you're just going to have an infinite supply of giants. As long as she stays alive, you will pretty much always have a team, and there are plenty of giants that it can end up summoning that will be even better than what you already have, so if you get lucky with those, you can kind of just win off of that, especially if you get like Yarl Fireman or something that can pretty much stand on its own as a soloable troop, so that should make it substantially easier than the gigantic mess that we were originally going to have that would have made this trial one of the worst we've had so far. Actually, probably literally the worst if we had to run with this. But luckily, this is not the team we have to use anymore. If you still see this team, this will change hopefully soon. It's a bug that's currently still showing this, but hopefully within the next day or so, they have that fixed. Anyways, let's start going over all of the things that we have going on this week. First, let's start with the Grave Knight itself. Great time to stock up on brown purple arcanes if you want to get them. First thing that comes to mind is good old Keeper of Souls. But anyways, as far as the strip itself, unfortunately not going to get much usage. It deals a bunch of damage to an enemy, and if the enemy is death marked, it will deal double damage, then creates 2 death mark gems. Unfortunately, this mechanic doesn't exist much amongst giants, so you're not really going to get a giant synergy with it. I guess you could technically go down the undead synergy. However, undead, for the most part these days, runs just pure into true damage, and this does physical damage. So for the most part, it's kind of in a weird in-between where it doesn't really work particularly well with giants, and doesn't work particularly well with undead, so I don't really see much of a use case for end up using this. Death Mark is also a very RNG-based mechanic, and there are plenty of things that apply Death Mark at a much more consistent rate. It also has pretty underwhelming traits, only really having the Death Touch, which does synergize a little bit with everything that he does, but overall, it's not really going to be a troop you're ever really going to use, unfortunately. But you can use it to upgrade Stormheim. Stormheim does reach, I believe, 27 stars, though of course most people will be stuck at 26 due to the level requirement of the deeds, the good old deed books that never come into the game. But hopefully we'll get more soon. Or even some kind of mode or something that'll add more. Who knows? 7.0 might finally fix it. We're going to get that updated next few months. Anyways, as far as the chest drop table is concerned, it is associated with Stormheim. Stormheim's a okay event key drop table. Nowhere near as good as the Adana rework we had last week. But there's a few things here and there. As far as the drop table itself, I don't actually have it set up here. Let me go get that. Do it by base rarity, save. There we go. Alright, so as far as things that are available here, or things that aren't available, let's go over those first. So the things that are not available in this event queue drop table are the Penguin. This is obtained from some Guild War weeks. I'm not sure what the actual reward is for this current Guild War, but it is one of the 6 that can end up occurring. They just go on a rotation, and every single week from the Guild War, every 4 weeks, you can end up getting one of those, and that's one of them. Aside from that, things that are not available are, of course, the 4 faction troops, all the ones from the Frostfire Keep. Those are not available in the event key drop table. And the final one that is not available is Strength. This is a tarot card that is specifically only in the Vault Key and Epic Vault Key drop table. You cannot get it from event keys. With that being said, things that you can get with event keys, there are probably 3 things you're really looking for. And by 3, I mean mostly 1. And it is Mistralis. Mistralis, definitely top 10 mythic as far as overall viability is concerned. Its most noteworthy thing is it's one of only a few mythics in the entire game that has a natural extra turn. This in itself is really good. One thing that's really nice with this is one of also only a few troops in the entire game of any rarity that has Jumble into extra turn. Jumble on its own is pretty bad, but Jumble with extra turn is situationally useful. It's a rather unique mechanic that ends up just jumbling every single location of every gem on the board. It can never land a direct extra turn. For example, you'll never jumble into a board that just gives you like 8 times of a color directly matched together. However, it can jumble in a way where you could swipe for 4 times extra turns, 5 times extra turns, but it's never going to give you like a 3, a 4, a 5, an 8, just like a mass of gems already connected. They're just going to be adjacent to each other so you can swipe for them. Really good on teams that like to get a lot of extra turns, as you can end up utilizing that not only with the enchant they end up triggering off the first one, but also you can just keep retriggering triggering it, as sometimes you can jumble into 2, 3, even 4 individual extra turns and get the value of every single extra turn ability that you have on your team. It also has Enchant, the best enchanter in the game. This is really good for gaining passive mana, particularly useful in Guild War, where battles tend to be a little bit slower paced, or, you know, as far as when you kind of reach a mana stalemate, when you deny their empowers and you're both kind of just trying to get up very slowly. Really good in those kind of situations, and ultimately can do some pretty good damage. Unfortunately, very inconsistent damage. It hits either 1 to 4 times, and if it hits a lot of times, then, you know, it's pretty solid. If it hits only once, which it tends to do when you need the damage, then obviously pretty underwhelming for its damage, but very luck-based. But when it does roll high, it is very good. It's mostly just a utility trip used for pretty much its enchant and its extra turn jumble with some damage pressure. And that's its main gimmick. It even has a little bit of spell reduction for some survivability. But overall, just the fact that its extra turn is one of its main viability, and probably the main thing you're looking for, though it is competing between 2 other mythics that aren't particularly good. So unfortunately, you might end up getting those if you do try going for event keys. Aside from that, Hinla and Yarrowfire Manor are pretty good for a couple things going on throughout the week. So they might be worth considering. They're both used in meta 4x Giant teams, so there's kind of that. It's 4x Giant's a bit of a weird team. It's not a particularly quick win, but actually has the highest bulk of pretty much any team in the game, especially this week with 20% extra stats. So maybe worth considering, just not a super high priority, but it will help you out throughout the week if you just have some event keys laying around and want to attempt for Mistralis and just stop when you end up getting these two if you don't end up getting it. And that's pretty much everything. There's a few good utility troops here and there, like Valkyrie and such, but they're low enough rarity that you probably already have them on hand, or are going to get plenty if you just even open like a few event keys. That's the rundown on event keys. Overall, not the greatest week for it, but still a week that isn't horrible value if you are going to go for it. And you can get some extra stars, and I believe this is an HP Kingdom based on how HP based it is, so you can hit that 5, 10, 20 star milestones if you want to get that little bit of extra HP. Anyways, as far as other things we have going on, we have 2 different events going on for guild-related activity. We have Guild Wars, and we have the Storm's Call for the World event. As far as the World event is concerned, it's a very straightforward one. We have spell damage, which unfortunately is only spell damage. We do actually have access to some pretty good skull spam teams this week. Unfortunately, without the extra damage, you're pretty much going to be forced to have to use spell damage. The only thing you really need to know about scoring is just don't take Yeti, and you're going to be good to go. We are restricted specifically to Giants, so you are always going to want to run Titan Hero class for your team. As far as damage sources are concerned, you would have had Baldur if we had access to skulls. But we have Yarrowfire Manor, we have Fire Giant, we have Hindla, we have all the trolls if you want to double any of the colors as well. Ogress for a nice low rarity one. We're using, on the other low rarity thing, Cyclops for our damage as well, if you happen to not have too many other options. Cyclops, while he boosts based on his attack, the actual damage that he's doing is spell based. So even though he says he's boosted by his attack, he is not checking the attack for his the metal that you have equipped. He's specifically actually still getting the spell damage increase. So if you have like 160% equipped, 320%, something similar, that is increasing his damage output, even though he is boost ratioed from his attack stat. So that is worth mentioning, and is pretty much one shot. Well, not one shot, but you know, it would eventually fall off. But it's a pretty high concentrated amount of damage if you don't have some of the better legends for running the game mode this week. But overall, it shouldn't be that bad. And you'll be able to have a lot of bulk and a 50% mana star off of Titan, which is nice. Which also, all those things pretty much have 20% stats this week too. I believe it's Stormheim and Giants this week, which is a pretty nice combination, as almost everything here is a Giants. Most notably Titan Hero class, which is already one of the better hero classes to begin with, so pretty nice. Aside from that, standard Guild War, I'll be messing around with this every single night this week, well, other than tonight, since, you know, it doesn't start till tomorrow. But same thing as per usual, make sure to have 24 unique things here. You want to make sure this says 12,000, so you're getting the full amount of extra points. If you could ever shift here, but yeah, there we go. You're allowed to set any colors for any of these defend days. You just want to make sure they're all unique and have them be as strong as possible composition-wise to ideally beat the enemy. And offensively, you want to use a pure color team. So on this day, you'll want to run pure green, then pure red, all 4 of your troops being that corresponding color. One thing that's also pretty noteworthy is free-to-play will be able to use Bork on both brown and yellow day. I'm not sure if they did this deliberately or if any of you on console can confirm, because I don't have a console at the moment to check on. I guess I could on Switch. I'm not even sure if Nintendo Switch has a thing right now, though, because they're kind of in their own world other than PlayStation 4 and Xbox that tends to be more aligned with where PC Mobile is, just on a different platform. But anyways, but yeah, at least on PC Mobile, brown and yellow is actually on the final 2 days. This is particularly relevant for free-to-play players, as you actually do get access to Bork. Of course, one thing that we still have going on right now for the next 6 days, well, basically 6 days, rest of today and the next 6 days, is the conclusion of the Kingdom Pass for Adana. Of course, we had the start of this last week, and it'll be concluding this week. But one thing that's pretty noteworthy is if you did not buy this Kingdom Pass for $7 or your regional equivalents. One thing that you get way later in the pass is the Bork 3000, and this is a pretty interesting troop. It is basically along the lines of like Marilith, Thrall, and such, where you end up destroying a bunch of gems, and it creates a little bit of bomb gems, but most notably, it's just a mass destroyer that gains a bunch of mana accumulation. This is very similar to Marilith, Thrall, Box Strider, you know, all the standard mass destroyers in the game. And one thing pretty nice about it is you can 50% start it off of both Mech and Beast, most likely Mech in most situations, and then you only need 6 mana, kind of like Thrall. Unfortunately, unlike Thrall, it does not have a +1 into its color, so that's a little unfortunate, but still pretty low mana cost for a mass destroyer, and potentially worth running on Brown and Yellow Guild War Day. And given that it's so late into the week, even free-to-play players, if you've been doing these every single day, will have access to Bork for those days. So that's not too bad. So, yeah. That we won't have to worry about that. I'm not sure about consoles, because consoles might have it on different days, but at least on PC Mobile, free-to-play will have access to Bork. And of course, if you played for the past, you've already had Bork for a while now. Got on, like, what, the second day? You already had access to him, so... if nothing else, we'll have it max, so you'll be able to do that as well. Though, of course, free-to-play can still get it max just by using a couple of blue orbs on it. Probably a major blue, since it is a base rarity of... Oh, no, it's an epic, so you can actually use 2 small blues to end up getting it maxed if you're playing free-to-play. And if you paid for the pass, you'll probably have it purely maxed without needing to throw a single orb at it due to all the rewards by then. But yeah, do make sure, while we're already on this page, don't forget to do your 10 Kingdom Passes. This was reworked last week to be a lot quicker. You end up getting 2 crowns per day. They're all weighted evenly, so in theory, it should be quicker. Though we had some days so far that took way longer, but in other days it only took like 6 minutes, so... it's overall been slightly quicker, but yeah, they're all weighted evenly now as far as the obtaining them. So your first one will be as easy to get as your 10th one. And just make sure to do that 10 times per day so you can end up getting every last reward. Even on the free side, there are still things worth it, like the weapon all the way at the end, the Bork that you can run for Guild War this week if you don't want to run Gorgoltha or something similar. So definitely value to be had, even if you are on the free side for the pass. Anyways, aside from that, other things that we have going on. This Tuesday, we have ourselves the faction event for Frostfire Keep. It is a blue-yellow faction. I always keep thinking it's blue-red because of the legend, but it is blue-yellow. Wednesday, we have the pet for... gosh, I have this one here, and I don't remember what the other one is. I'm pretty sure it wasn't anything relevant. I think it's just one of those repeat pets. I know it's not a new one, so it can't be anything too relevant. Thursday, we have ourselves the glass event for Titan. Titan is relevant, however. Titan hero class, 50% mana start to all giants, very well-rounded. Probably the most well-rounded to this day hero class in the entire game. You might see me on a lot of times when, if you copy-paste in your team codes, a lot of them tend to default to Titan or Archer. Archer I normally default to if it's like no hero. But if I'm just like defaulting to like, I need a 50% mana start that kind of holds the line, that's very versatile, I normally just plop a Titan there. It does pretty much everything you need. It's a very well-rounded hero class. You can literally run as your only hero class, you'd probably be fine. It's good with skulls, it's good with mana accumulation, it's good for tanking. It does basically every role you would ever need a hero class to do, and buffs a bunch of giants while doing so, which is particularly relevant this week due to its 20% buff. This week, as well as many other giants that have 10% or 20% buff this week. And of course, you can even see it right here. We have a Bounty Hunter event this Friday. It's pretty straightforward. You just put the Bounty Captain all the way in the back, as generally they are pretty underwhelming, and I believe this week is no different. And basically, you just run it with Tagraki, and just run a bunch of true damage. Tagraki, Corpse Mirror, maybe like an Ogress up front, get your mana accumulation, and just slowly whittle them down with true damage. Bounty Hunter's pretty much been the same for a while. The meta hasn't really shifted. But it's a good time to get some guarantee orbs, if nothing else. And the free loot that you get from it's pretty high. And if you want to pay for it, it's a pretty consistent way of getting major orbs. You can get 2 major orbs for several hundred gems, among many other loots. So a decent mode to end up doing, and we'll be messing with that this weekend. As far as the Soul Forge is concerned, I would say 2 pretty noteworthy things. While I generally don't advise getting legends, one thing that was available last week was Guard's Avatar, and you probably see me mention a lot, including today, because we'll be running it for tomorrow, is Sir Quentin Hadley with Guard's Avatar. Well, technically the other way around. Guard's Avatar with Sir Quentin Hadley. This is a absurdly good faction option if you're looking for a way to speed up your Tuesday factions, and technically even the weekend factions if it's corresponding color, whenever those end up coming around. But like we had last weekend. But we weren't able to use it for last weekend. But anyways, when you can end up using it, really strong option. We'll be able to use it for tomorrow. So Guard's Avatar you were able to get in Soul Forge last week. And if you happen to and you still don't have Sir Quentin Hadley, well, you might want to invest into him as well. Generally not worth getting legends, but he's one of those few that might be worth considering it under your specific circumstance if you don't already have it for the Guard's Avatar Sir Quentin Hadley combo for Tuesday faction events. As far as other things, Lord of Slaughter, one of the better mythics in the game. Speaking of top 10 mythics, while Mistralis is one, Lord of Slaughter is also pretty much in that category. He has a couple things going for him. He has absurdly good skull damage. being able to create a bunch of Doom Skulls, gets 1 to 2 free death marks, which he doesn't even really need, 1 to 2 free bleeds, which honestly is more of a downside than an upside due to how things can take damage and gain a buff. But mostly, he just does an absurd amount of skull damage. He almost always has alignment because he board clears every single time, especially if you have like a Brown Storm going. Even if you don't, he has a Doomstorm at start of battle, which can help synergize him a little bit more. He has some skull reduction, which can help him survive a little bit. Not a particularly high amount, but every little bit helps. And most notably, he is the only troop in the game with a 100% chance to do true damage when doing skulls. Of course, if it's stunned, it doesn't get to do so, and it has no immunes to that, so can easily get stunned to stop that. This trait used to be on a lot more things when it was first released. However, in the current state of game, Lord of Slaughter is the only troop that has this at 100% rate. There are a few others that have it at like 75% or 50% of the time, but this is exceedingly inconsistent because sometimes they'll have physical damage, which if you're trying to kill them with true damage is basically like hitting 0 on your skull. However, this thing will always hit that true damage, meaning it will kill most things at essentially double the speed, as you're just having to deal with their HP value rather than both their armor and their HP value. So really great in various skull spam teams, especially in synergizing it with like a true damage team, or just go all in on skulls and just let him do that higher damage. Despite this, he's actually oddly enough used in second slot more often rather than first. While he can be used in first and get pretty good value there, he's a little bit squishy. 25% score reduction, not a particularly high amount compared to things that exist, and he can backfire on himself pretty easily, so sometimes you do go for a frontline tank. But really great option, really great skull spammer. If you're looking for a really broken skull spam team, you can pretty much build almost anything around that. And you'll have something usable that you can use for Explore 12 and other various modes within the game. Anyways, aside from that, unfortunately, weapons, nothing particularly interesting. It's mostly just collection stuff if you want them for utility purposes. Nothing really of note to mention by name. It's mostly just things if you just want to pick up like a, I don't know, Doomed Hammer or something. Nothing you really need is available, unfortunately, this week. But a good week to skip or just get some collection stuff if you still need it for the Kingdom, for any of the star levels. Anyways, let's go over a bunch of teams, all of which will be in the description below, as per usual. Let's start all the way from the top and go over to the World Event team. So as I already mentioned, pretty standard team. One thing that's really noteworthy about this team is how absurdly high this thing's HP is. I don't even have the star pet yet. We'll be able to get that later today. Hopefully they'll fix that by then. I might even wait until they do, because for whatever reason in my game, I cannot see the new team that I was just mentioning earlier as far as the trial rework. However, once we get that, this HP value will be even higher. So this is even as high as it could be. But between 20% and all the HP, look at it's 226. The other one is going to be like a 250 when we end up getting the other pet. Maybe not that high, but pretty close. Yeah, Hero will be over 250 once we get that. Wow, 243. But yeah, it's the highest HP team in existence. There's actually no team that gets a higher HP value than this, due to the fact that Stormheim is pure HP here, or a decent amount of HP here, and the Elemental Synergy even gets some HP, and the Giant Synergy. And we don't even have the Starry Pet. This is still missing one of the bonuses that you would also likely have access to if you just go do the Starry Pet within this week. So that's a lot of HP, and the bulkiest in the entire game as far as starting HP is concerned. Unfortunately, its damage output is average, nothing like over the top. But one nice thing about it is it doesn't use any mythics. Well, I am using Dawnbringer here, but you know, you can replace this with pretty much any utility weapon that does damage. We mostly use one for Dawnbringer as it helps keep them alive, AoE just for damage pressure, all that, but it's pretty flexible what you want to put there. One other nice thing about it is it sucks up some of the Fire mana, excess mana. He creates a bunch of yellow-red, which loops into himself, which also goes into Fire Giant. Fire Giant then cleans up by doing the extra damage whenever he gets a kill, or creates red whenever he gets a kill, doing extra damage to the burning. Yarl just burns the entire team, so you always get that triple damage, which makes it easier in that whole land to kill, which gives you the red mana that goes back into Yarl, and then you just kind of keep looping from there and go crazy. All the excess mana goes into Dawnbringer or whatever else you put here, and then you just kill out with that. And the Handless here mostly for backup. You gain a little bit of magic every single time you take an extra turn, of which you're taking a lot off of Yarl and Fire Giant. On top of that, it also has backup summon. And you can also do it as a finishing blow, and if you truly need it, even comes with the freeze mechanic, which does end up freezing 3 enemies. So in a lot of situations, that might be the entire enemy team, or at least a lot of the enemy team. And yeah, pretty good option. And it's also in event keys this week if you want to go pick it up. Actually, all this stuff is, except for Dawnbringer. All that stuff is in the event key drop table. And all lower rarity. Well, 2 legends and a lower rarity ultra rare. Anyways, for the lower reward event, you kind of already saw this earlier, but we're basically using an Ogress to mana accumulate for Cyclops. Cyclops does get boosted by the spell damage, including his boost ratio on attack. Even though it's boost ratio for attack, ultimately the ability itself is still spell damage, so it is still getting that full boost ratio from all the spell increases that you have for the event. So you can just use that, Ogress to tank, Ogress to mana accumulate, and you don't have to use Abra Crystal here. This is mostly just for mana accumulation coverage. You could put any of the double color explodey weapons you have here. Ideally, just don't have it blocked, and it's mostly just for backup summon and mana accumulation, so you can get your damage sources rolling. And of course, you saw this coming, Guards Avatar, Cirqua, and Hadley. I was considering putting another team here because I feel like I always show this team. However, this one is particularly relevant as of this week, as last week we had access to Guard's Avatar in Soulforge, and this week we have Circle and Hadley in Soulforge. So it's easier than ever to end up obtaining. So that's pretty nice. So if you do finally have those options, definitely time to go run it, as it's really good for a lot of those factions if you want to save like 10 minutes on a Tuesday faction event or so, compared to some other teams. Anyways, next up we have like a Hiking Iron against Zolgoth combo. Pretty standard, just using mana accumulation. Good old new Bane of Mercy that came in a couple months ago. One thing really nice about this is it gives your Hiking Iron get the Devour rate he already needs. If you're earlier on in the game, you're pretty much instantly going to hit 100 if you're not already there. And this also 4 times curses, so you don't have to worry about immune to Devour. And even if they do, you just can Zolgoth them down. And we mostly just have this for mana accumulation, so any mana accumulation weapon doesn't have to be this one. It's just the one we happen to have there. Next, we have Pure Faction. We have a nice diverse team of 4 Frostfire Wraiths. Of course, main gimmick with this, well, for one, he's only a rare, so it's very easy to fully metal, which gives him a little bit extra tankability, gives him a bunch of HP and armor. But the most relevant thing is he's pretty much unkillable. Well, not literally unkillable, but pretty unkillable. He has a 65% score reduction, but on top of that, he also gets to steal life from the first enemy, which means he's doing true damage and gaining that true damage back as life gain. This makes him very bulky and hard to kill. He also boosts from frozen and burning enemies, however, this is pretty much never going to happen due to the rest of the composition of the team. You could replace out the legend, but honestly, all you really need is a billion Frostfire Wraiths. The main reason you actually want to spam 4 of these and not go with like a third alternative or something similar, or some kind of like a 4th troop there, is mostly due to enchant. Generally, when you're running these, you will have access to the enchant, 2 mana per turn, and this just allows you to damage pressure at a higher rate, as it's the only true damage from this faction, and this gives you 4 true damage options instead of 3. So it's normally just better to just go all in on Frostfire Wraith. One thing that's also pretty nice is if you get into a very sketchy situation, it is technically possible to win with only 1 of these. Ideally, you want 3 or 4 of them going into the final fight, but theoretically, if you get lucky enough, you can just tank everything out with just only 1, so that is possible. But realistically, you're going to have 3+ going in the final fight. You just get the enchant to get all the true damage down, you bulk up and just keep killing out their first slot, and you just work from the top to bottom, killing them out very slowly with true damage. It's not the quickest of factions, but it's a pretty consistent one as far as survivability is concerned, even with lower stats. Should be fine for the most part. Anyways, next we have the Titan class event. This is taking place on Thursday, as it normally does, as far as class events are concerned. Pretty good hero class overall. We're basically just going with a spam Fire Giant. We're doing this for the red link. You can also do it as a cleanup option, but we're going for the red link. This gives a bunch of mana accumulation into Dawnbringer. If you don't have Dawnbringer, you can run Summer's Fury, and basically you're just trying to feed into a red weapon, that hits all enemies, get it down very quickly, and just kill out very quickly as you normally would, just bursting down a Thursday class event. It is generally never worth spending gems on them, but you can end up going and getting free 25 gems, as well as some class XP for Titan if you already have it maxed, and if you don't, then you probably should consider try to work on it, as is among one of the better hero classes in the game, particularly this week. Next we have the new team for the Stormheim Trials. This you might already be able to see in your game. I have no clue why mine and a few other people's don't show it, but hopefully it'll fix that in the next day so we can actually go run the faction. But it is the Fast Sapphire Giant, Valkyrie, Scaremare, and Hinla in that order. I'm not sure what order it normally gives you, but this is the order you should pretty much run it in for the most part. You have yourself a solid tank up in first slot. This is actually the strongest option we've really had as far as like a proper team composition. I would still say that Infinite Loop we had for the Todd that first time around was the overall easiest, but this is the most coherent team we've had so far. Valkyrie ends up converting to blue, also gives you basically max souls, even has blue link, so you feed those a bit quicker. Skymare is mostly just to keep your most important things alive, which is initially your tank, and then after that is probably your Hinla if it's starting to take too much damage. Ideally, you don't want to cast this on Hinla because it will move it to first slot. However, if it's about to die from, targeted damage and other similar things, you might want to end up moving it to first slot just to give a bunch of bulk, and then move something else to first slot so you can, like the Hinla summon, just so you can get her out of first slot so she doesn't take as much damage pressure. And Hinla herself just does all the damage, has all the resummon, has pretty much everything you need to just solo the battle. Honestly, if it was just Hinla and nothing else on your team, you'd probably still win, as it is just such an absurdly good option. And yeah, you can just solo the whole thing with just that, so the rest of your team is just there to help Hinla for the most part. And finally, we have Bounty Hunter. Of course, we'll just type out the names in the description if you want to go and move that, since you can't actually copy-paste this one, since we don't have the Bounty Captain until Friday. But it is pretty standard Bounty Hunter. Meta hasn't really changed in a very, very long time. It's just Ogress, Tagraki Warrior, Corpse Mirror, and whatever the Bounty Captain is. Hopefully we'll have some more Bounty Captains soon that can kind of do like a Skull meta or some kind of else, or do anything to this team so we can kind of switch something else. Maybe like replace Corpse Mirror with a slightly better like second Tagraki. Though don't double up on any because that does penalize you on points. But when I say second Tagraki, I mean something similarly as good as him. which Corpse Mare is about the closest equivalent we have at the moment. At least it covers colors, if nothing else. Yeah, Bounty Hunter, still the same as always been. Nothing really changed there. Overall, mostly just done for its loot, as the mode itself gets a little bit repetitive once you reach the later part. But it does give some pretty good loot, so definitely worth doing at minimum the free battles. And if you want to invest several hundred gems into it, you can get quite a few orbs from it too. Particularly guarantee major orbs, which is always nice. Anyways, guys, I'll wrap it up for now. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. We'll be streaming Guild Wars every single night this week if you want to go see any Guild Wall action. And we'll be doing that every single night, testing the new Bork as well, which is pretty much the only really good viable thing we got from the Adana Kingdom Pass. It's still going on for the rest this week, so don't forget to finish that out, and definitely go get your Bork, as well as all the rewards. But that Bork in particular is probably going to be the only thing actually used from it going forward, as, you know, it's basically like a new Marilith in a sense, or a new Thrall, or however you want to look at it. It's that destroy kind of mass mana accumulation meta kind of thing. The bomb gems it does doesn't really do anything, but, you know, Mass Destroy is still going to be very useful for a mana accumulation option, and it could even be a Gorgoltha replacement, as it does get started a lot quicker, though it does only have a 25% score reduction compared to Gorgoltha's very hefty 75% reduction. So it's not going to completely replace it, but, you know, its mana accumulation is definitely going to be better than it in almost all circumstances, as long as your mana is not particularly low. But later in the game, it's definitely going to be a better option than it in most situations. Anyways, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful week. I will catch all of you guys later. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.